My name is Maria Martinez, and at 29 years old, I never imagined my father's wedding would become the night everything changed between us. For 5 years, he introduced me to his colleagues and friends with barely concealed shame. "Maria's just a cleaner," he would say, that dismissive tone making it clear he wished I had chosen a more respectable career. But that evening, when a biohazard emergency struck the city's largest hospital and health officials needed immediate help, when news cameras caught me leading my hazmat-suited team into a contaminated facility, the look on my father's face was something I will never forget. If you are watching this video right now, I would love to know where you are from. Drop it in the comment section below. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family relationships that take unexpected turns when the underestimated finally prove their worth. My father, James Martinez, measured success by how far you could distance yourself from manual labor. At 62, he was a successful real estate agent who had built his career on persistence and charm. His parents had immigrated from Mexico with almost nothing, working in agriculture and cleaning jobs to give their children better opportunities. My father put himself through community college, earned his real estate license, and spent 40 years climbing from small residential sales to luxury commercial properties. He had escaped what he called that life, the life of his parents who cleaned other people's homes and offices for minimum wage. In his mind, success meant suits and business cards, not mops and rubber gloves. My mother, Carmen, had worked as a housekeeper until she died from complications of diabetes 6 years ago. She cleaned homes independently, making about $200 a day when she could book enough clients. The work was physically demanding and offered no benefits, no security, no respect. She would come home exhausted, her hands raw from cleaning chemicals, her back aching from scrubbing floors. My father had been embarrassed by her work, though he never said it directly. He would tell people she worked from home or had her own business without specifying what kind. After she died, he became determined that I would never follow that path. I had graduated from community college with a business degree, hoping to make my parents proud. But the corporate jobs I applied for felt suffocating, endless cubicles and meaningless tasks that made me feel like a cog in someone else's machine. I wanted to build something of my own. 5 years ago, I used $8,000 in savings to start Pristine Solutions. I began where my mother had, cleaning residential homes. But unlike her, I approached it as a business to scale, not just a way to earn daily wages. I invested in professional equipment, got proper insurance, developed standardized cleaning protocols, and focused on reliability and quality. Within 6 months, I had hired 3 employees. Within a year, I had shifted focus to commercial clients, small offices, medical clinics, retail spaces. The margins were better, contracts more stable, and the work more technical than basic house cleaning. By year 2, I had 15 employees and $500,000 in annual revenue. I pursued specialized certifications, OSHA training for bloodborne pathogens, EPA protocols for infection control, hazardous waste handling. I realized that medical facilities and laboratories needed cleaning contractors with specialized knowledge, and few companies had those credentials. Now, in year 5, Pristine Solutions employed 35 people and generated $1.5 million annually. We held contracts with 3 hospitals, 2 medical research facilities, and over 40 commercial offices. We had 5 company vehicles, a warehouse for equipment storage, and I provided health insurance and retirement contributions for all full-time employees. I wasn't my mother, cleaning houses alone for cash payments. I was running a legitimate business that employed people, paid taxes, and provided essential services to medical and corporate clients. But my father couldn't see the difference. To him, I was still just a cleaner. Someone who had failed to escape what his family had worked so hard to leave behind. My business partner and best friend, Lucia Reyes, had joined me in year 2. She handled operations and client relations while I managed the technical side, training, safety protocols, and specialized services. Lucia understood my father's attitude because her own family had similar views about service work. They think success only looks one way, she would say. Suit, tie, office with a view. They can't see that building a profitable business that provides good jobs is success, no matter what industry. When my father's wedding invitation arrived, I almost declined. James was marrying Karen Walsh, a 52-year-old interior designer who owned a successful firm. They had met through a real estate deal and bonded over their shared appreciation for aesthetics and professional achievement. Karen was polished, educated, and clearly shared my father's views about career hierarchy. At the few uncomfortable dinners we'd shared, Karen had been politely condescending about my work. "Cleaning is such honest work," she would say in that tone that suggested honest was a euphemism for simple. "Do you think you'll ever want to do something more professional?" The wedding would be a showcase for my father's world, real estate agents, business owners, Karen's design industry colleagues. I would be the embarrassing daughter who cleaned toilets while everyone else discussed deals and projects. "You should go," Lucia insisted when I showed her the invitation. "Walk in there with your head high. You built $1 million business. That deserves respect whether he gives it or not. He'll introduce me as Maria, who does cleaning. He always does." Then you correct him. Politely, professionally. "I own Pristine Solutions, a commercial cleaning company." Make him say the full truth. I packed for the weekend with low expectations, preparing myself for 48 hours of subtle humiliation. I had no idea how dramatically that weekend would change not just my father's perception, but my entire business trajectory. Incident 1, Rehearsal Dinner Introduction. The rehearsal dinner took place at an upscale restaurant overlooking the harbor. Round tables filled with my father's colleagues and Karen's friends, everyone dressed in expensive casual wear. I wore a navy dress that Lucia had helped me pick out, trying to look polished enough to blend in. My father spotted me immediately and approached with Karen, both smiling those practiced social smiles. "Maria, you made it. Everyone, this is my daughter Maria. She cleans houses here in the city. Not owns a business. Not runs a company. Just cleans houses." The table of real estate agents offered polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. One woman, clearly trying to be kind, said, "Well, everyone needs a good cleaner. Do you have a card?" Before I could respond, my father laughed. "Maria's not taking on new houses. She stays pretty busy with what she has." He was minimizing, deflecting, making sure no one asked too many questions. I felt my face flush but maintained composure. "Actually, I own Pristine Solutions. We do commercial cleaning, medical facilities, corporate offices. We have 35 employees." My father's smile tightened. "Right, yes. She's expanded a bit. Karen, should we check on the seating arrangements?" They moved away quickly, leaving me with the real estate agents who had already lost interest in the conversation. Throughout the dinner, the pattern repeated. I would mention my business, my father would redirect. Someone would ask what I did, he would answer vaguely before I could speak. By the time dessert arrived, I had stopped trying to correct him. Incident 2, Morning Wedding Prep. The next morning, I met my father and Karen for breakfast at the hotel. They were discussing last-minute wedding details when I arrived. "Maria, good morning," Karen said warmly. "We were just talking about you, actually." My stomach tightened. "Oh? Your father mentioned you've been doing cleaning work for a while now. Have you thought about what's next? I mean, long-term career plans?" "I have a career," I replied carefully. "I own and operate a commercial cleaning company." "Right, but I mean a career with growth potential. Real advancement." She leaned forward, her tone conspiratorial. "I'm actually looking for someone to help with project management at my design firm. It would be entry-level, but you'd learn the business, work with professional clients. Real career trajectory." My father nodded enthusiastically. "That's a generous offer, Karen. Maria, you should seriously consider it. I have a business that generates $1.5 million annually. I'm not looking for entry-level work." They exchanged glances. My father spoke carefully. "Maria, I know you're proud of what you built. But cleaning isn't. I mean, it's not what I hoped for you. When your mother was alive, doing that kind of work, it broke my heart. I wanted better for you." "Better? Dad, I employ 35 people. I provide health insurance and retirement plans. I have contracts with hospitals. That is better." "It's still cleaning," he said quietly. "I wanted you to have a professional career. Something respectable." The word hung between us. Respectable. My work wasn't respectable in his eyes. Karen tried to mediate. "I think what James means is that there's no shame in service work, but perhaps you could leverage your business experience into something more elevated." I stood up from the table. "I need to get ready for the ceremony." As I walked away, I heard Karen say softly, "You can't force her, James. Some people are satisfied with simpler lives." Incident 3, Pre-ceremony encounter. An hour before the ceremony, I was in the hotel lobby when I saw an elderly woman struggling with a coffee stain on her dress. She was clearly distressed, dabbing at the fabric with napkins that only spread the stain. "Excuse me," I approached her. "I might be able to help with that." "Oh, it's ruined. And I don't have time to change before the ceremony. Do you have club soda? And salt?" I asked the nearest server, who quickly brought both. I had the woman dab the area with club soda, then applied salt to absorb the stain. Within minutes, the stain was significantly lighter. "You're a lifesaver. How did you know how to do that?" "I own a cleaning company. You learn all the tricks." Her face lit up with interest. "Really? What kind of cleaning company?" "Commercial and medical facility cleaning. We specialize in." My father appeared beside us, interrupting. "Everything all right here? Mrs. Morrison, you look lovely. Shall we get you sorted out before the ceremony?" He steered the elderly woman away before I could finish explaining. I learned later that Mrs. Morrison was the city's deputy health commissioner, someone who might have been very interested in my company's capabilities. Incident 4, the wedding ceremony. The ceremony itself was elegant. My father and Karen exchanged vows in a garden overlooking the water. I sat in the back row, watching my father smile more broadly than I'd seen in years. He was happy. This was his new beginning, his new family. During the cocktail hour, my father made his rounds with Karen, introducing her to colleagues who hadn't yet met her. When they reached a group of real estate brokers, my father called me over. "Gentlemen, my daughter Maria. Maria's in the cleaning business." One of the brokers chuckled. "Well, we certainly need more of that in this city. Someone's got to keep things tidy, right?" The others laughed. My father joined in, shaking his head ruefully. "At least she's working. That's something. At least she's working." As though I were barely employed, scraping by rather than running a successful company. During dinner, I was seated at a table in the back with other peripheral guests, distant relatives, neighbors, people who didn't fit Karen's professional social circle. The placement was deliberate. I didn't belong with the successful people at the front tables. Incident 5, the breaking point. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. Walking back through the hallway, I heard my father's voice from a side room where some guests were getting drinks. He was talking to two men in expensive suits, colleagues, from their conversation about property deals. "Your daughter seems sweet," one of them said. "What does she do?" "Maria's just a cleaner," my father replied. I tried to steer her toward real estate, get her licensed, but she wanted easy work. No ambition, unfortunately. Takes after her mother that way. That's a shame. With your connections, she could have really made something of herself. I know. I keep hoping she'll meet someone, settle down, maybe get motivated to do something more serious. But at 29, I'm starting to think this is just who she is. The other man laughed. "Well, someone has to clean the toilets, right?" My father laughed too. "Exactly. At least she's not asking me for money." I stood frozen in the hallway, my hands trembling. Just a cleaner. Easy work. No ambition. Takes after her mother. At least she's not asking for money. 5 years of building a business, creating jobs, earning certifications, winning contracts, all of it reduced to just a cleaner with no ambition. I returned to my table, barely able to focus on the conversations around me. Lucia's voice echoed in my mind, his limitation, not your failure. But it didn't feel that way. It felt like failing to be enough, again and again, no matter what I accomplished. The reception continued around me while I sat at my back table, emotionally numb. Karen's successful children gave toasts about family and new beginnings. My father beamed with pride, his arm around Karen, clearly happy in this new chapter of his life. No one mentioned me. No one acknowledged that my father had a daughter sitting 20 feet away. I was peripheral to his new life, an embarrassment to be minimized. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucia. "How are you holding up?" Heard him tell someone I have no ambition and easy work, that I take after my mother, the ultimate insult in his mind. Her response came immediately, "Leave. You don't need to stay for this. Come home and we'll watch terrible movies and remember that you built $1 million company without his help." I was seriously considering it when something shifted in the room. Several guests were checking their phones, their expressions concerned. A man at the next table said loudly, "There's a situation at County Hospital. Some kind of contamination emergency." County Hospital was 10 miles away, the largest medical center in the city. More guests were checking phones now, reading news alerts. A woman in a burgundy suit approached the table where several official-looking people sat. I recognized them as colleagues of Karen's. but their conversation suggested they were also health department officials. "It's serious," the woman was saying. "Infectious disease ward has a biohazard breach. They need immediate emergency decontamination or they'll have to evacuate the entire wing." My attention sharpened. Biohazard emergency decontamination was exactly what Pristine Solutions was certified to handle. One of the health officials was on his phone, his voice stressed. "What do you mean they won't respond? Try the other company. We need someone there within 2 hours or we're shutting down the wing." He hung up, shaking his head. "The contracted company is refusing to enter. Their crew won't go near an active infectious contamination. The backup company isn't answering their emergency line." I knew why. Standard cleaning companies weren't equipped or trained for active biohazard situations. Most had insurance exclusions for infectious disease response. You needed specialized training, equipment, and protocols. Mrs. Morrison, the elderly woman I'd helped earlier, was sitting with the health officials. She suddenly looked in my direction. "That young woman," she said, pointing at me. "She said she owns a cleaning company. Could she help?" The health official, I would later learn his name was Dr. Chen, looked at me skeptically. "We need specialized biohazard response, not residential cleaners. This is an infectious disease contamination in a hospital setting." Mrs. Morrison insisted, "Just ask her. She seemed very knowledgeable." Dr. Chen approached my table with obvious reluctance, probably humoring his colleague. "Excuse me, I understand you own a cleaning company?" "Yes. Pristine Solutions. We specialize in medical facility and biohazard cleaning." His expression changed slightly. "Biohazard? Do you have OSHA certifications? Bloodborne pathogen training, infectious disease protocols, hazardous waste handling. We're one of 3 companies in the city certified for emergency medical decontamination." He pulled out his phone immediately. "Pristine Solutions? Let me check our contractor database." I waited, aware that my father had moved closer, listening to this exchange with confusion. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as he read his screen. "You're on our approved emergency contractor list. Grade A certification, full insurance coverage, specialized equipment inventory." He looked up at me with new respect. "Why didn't we call you first? You probably tried. I keep my emergency phone in my car. I'm at a family event. Can you mobilize a crew tonight? We're looking at a contaminated infectious disease ward, approximately 8,000 square feet, suspected pathogen exposure. We need full decontamination and sterilization verification." My mind calculated rapidly. I can have a crew there in 90 minutes. What's the pathogen? Suspected antibiotic-resistant bacterial infection. We're waiting on lab confirmation, but we're treating it as high risk. We'll need hospital access, coordination with your infection control team, and containment protocols for adjacent areas. My fee for emergency after-hours response is $45,000. Someone at a nearby table gasped at the number. Dr. Chen didn't blink. "Agreed. How soon can you get there?" I was already pulling out my phone, texting my emergency team coordinator. 90 minutes. I'll meet them there to assess the situation and implement protocols. As Dr. Chen moved away to make calls, I became aware of the crowd that had gathered. My father stood at the edge, his face pale. Karen looked stunned. The real estate brokers who had been laughing about toilet cleaning earlier were staring. A local news crew that had been covering the wedding, it was apparently newsworthy as a society event, had caught wind of the hospital emergency and were filming. A reporter approached me. "Ma'am, you're responding to the county hospital emergency?" "Yes. My company, Pristine Solutions, specializes in medical facility decontamination. Can you explain what's involved in a response like this?" I explained briefly: containment procedures, proper protective equipment, decontamination protocols, pathogen-specific cleaning agents, verification testing. I kept it concise and professional. The reporter was impressed. "So your company is one of only 3 in the city capable of handling this emergency?" "Correct. It requires specialized certifications and equipment that most cleaning companies don't maintain. And the hospital would have to shut down without this response? They'd have to evacuate the infected wing, which would displace critical patients and potentially spread contamination. Quick response is essential." As I finished the interview, my father approached. "Maria, I had no idea you." "I need to go, Dad. I have an emergency to handle." I walked away from my father's wedding, from the guests who had dismissed me all evening, and headed to my car to retrieve my emergency response kit. Behind me, I heard Karen say to my father, "James, did you know she did this kind of work?" He had no answer. 90 minutes later, I stood in the parking lot of County Hospital in full hazmat gear, coordinating with my emergency team. We had arrived in 3 company vans loaded with specialized equipment, hospital-grade disinfectants, HEPA filtration units, protective gear, containment barriers, and verification testing equipment. The local news crew had followed the story and were filming from a safe distance. I was too focused on the work to care about cameras. Dr. Chen met me at the entrance with the hospital's infection control team. We reviewed the contamination zone, confirmed protocols, and established a timeline. My crew moved with practiced precision. This was our 4th biohazard emergency this year. The work took all night. We established containment, implemented negative pressure airflow, applied decontamination protocols in stages, and conducted verification testing to confirm pathogen elimination. At 6 a.m., we completed the final clearance testing. Dr. Chen shook my hand, both of us still in protective gear. "Exceptional work. The wing would have been closed for days without your response. You potentially saved lives tonight." "That's what we trained for," I replied simply. As my team packed equipment, I became aware of how extensively the news had covered our response. The morning broadcast was playing on a TV in the hospital lobby. "Crisis averted, local company responds to hospital biohazard emergency." The segment showed footage of our arrival, my team in full hazmat suits, the scale of our operation. It included my earlier interview explaining the technical work, Dr. Chen praising our professionalism, and a hospital administrator discussing how crucial the rapid response had been. Pristine Solutions, a local medical facility cleaning company owned by 29-year-old Maria Martinez, was one of only 3 companies in the region capable of handling this level of emergency response, the anchor explained. The company's $45,000 emergency fee may seem steep, but considering the hospital wing would have cost millions in closure and patient relocation, it's a bargain for potentially life-saving intervention. My phone had been buzzing all night. Messages from Lucia, from employees, from potential clients who had seen the news. And 17 missed calls from my father. As I supervised the final equipment loading, a car pulled into the parking lot. My father emerged, still wearing his wedding suit from the night before. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Maria, I've been trying to reach you. I've been working, Dad. All night. Decontaminating a hospital wing so patients wouldn't have to be evacuated." He stared at the vans, the equipment, my crew of employees who clearly respected my authority. "I saw the news. All night, every channel. They keep showing you leading your team, explaining the protocols. They called you an expert, a specialist. I am an expert. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 5 years. The news said you have 35 employees, $1.5 million in revenue, special certifications. Maria, why didn't you tell me all this?" I pulled off my protective gloves, exhausted and emotionally raw. "I did tell you, Dad. Last Christmas, I told you we hit $1.5 million. You said that's nice and changed the subject. 2 years ago, I told you about getting our OSHA certifications. You asked when I was going to get a real job. Last year, I invited you to our facility expansion. You were too busy." He looked stricken. "I don't remember those conversations." "Of course you don't. Because you weren't listening. You were too embarrassed by what I do to actually learn about it. I just wanted better for you. Your mother worked herself to death cleaning houses. Mom cleaned houses alone for $50 at a time with no benefits and no security. I run a company with 35 employees, comprehensive insurance, emergency response contracts with the city's largest medical facilities, and annual revenue that will hit $2 million this year. Those aren't the same thing, Dad. But you never bothered to see the difference." My father's eyes filled with tears. "I heard what I said last night. Karen told me you were in the hallway. About you having no ambition, easy work, taking after your mother. Yeah. I heard all of it. Maria, I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. You see it now because other people told you to see it. Because the news called me an expert. Because health officials praised my work. Because I charged $45,000 for one night and people thought that was reasonable. Your opinion only changed because external validation forced it." He had no defense for that truth. Karen appeared then, looking apologetic. "Maria, I owe you an apology too. I made assumptions about your work that were completely wrong. What you've built is remarkable, and I was condescending. I'm sorry. I nodded, accepting her apology more easily than my father's. She had been ignorant and dismissive, but he had been ashamed. There was a difference. I need to go home, I said. I've been working for 24 hours straight. Can we talk? My father asked. Really talk? I want to understand what you do, what you've built. Maybe. Eventually. But Dad, you need to understand something first. I built this company despite your shame, not because of your support. Every time you introduced me as just a cleaner, every time you suggested I get a real job, every time you looked embarrassed when someone asked what I did, that hurt. And you can't erase 5 years of hurt with one conversation just because you finally got embarrassed in front of your colleagues. I drove home to my apartment, too tired for tears. Lucia was waiting with coffee and breakfast. You're a hero, she said, showing me her phone where my face was all over the news and social media. Everyone's talking about the hospital response. I just did my job. You did your job brilliantly, while your father finally figured out what you've been trying to tell him for years. 10 months after my father's wedding, I stood in Pristine Solutions' new training facility, watching our latest class of employees complete their biohazard certification course. The company had grown to 60 employees, split between regular commercial contracts and our specialized emergency response division. The hospital emergency had transformed the business. We now held preferred vendor contracts with every major hospital in the region. The city had hired us for a 3-year municipal building contract worth $800,000 annually. Our revenue had jumped to $2.5 million, with projections for $3 million next year. I had been featured in business magazines as an example of successful service industry entrepreneurship. The state health department hired me as a consultant for their pandemic preparedness program, developing protocols for emergency sanitation response. I spoke at small business conferences about scaling service companies and providing dignified employment. More meaningfully, I had created a scholarship program honoring my mother, providing funds for children of service workers to attend college or vocational programs. 50 students had received scholarships so far. My relationship with my father had evolved slowly. After the hospital emergency, he began visiting my facility regularly, asking genuine questions about operations, safety protocols, employee training. He attended our training facility ribbon cutting and actually listened when I explained our business model. We had lunch together monthly now. The conversations were different. He talked less about what I should do and asked more about what I was doing. He still defaulted sometimes to his worldview about professional hierarchy, but he caught himself. I spent 40 years being ashamed of the wrong things, he told me during one of our lunches. I was ashamed of work that kept my family fed, gave my parents dignity, and taught me the value of showing up every day. I passed that shame to you, and I'm sorry. What you've built, providing good jobs with benefits for 60 people, responding to emergencies that protect public health, that's what matters. Not whether you wear a suit to work. The apology meant something because it came after months of action, not just words. I had started dating Daniel, the hospital administrator I met during the emergency response. He had respected my work from day one, never questioning whether running a cleaning company was a real career. We understood each other's worlds, both of us managing essential services that society often overlooked until crisis struck. Last week, my father attended a city ceremony where I received a Small Business Excellence Award. He sat in the audience with Karen, watching me accept recognition for job creation and community service. Afterward, he introduced me to his real estate colleagues properly, my daughter Maria, CEO of Pristine Solutions. She runs one of the most successful commercial cleaning companies in the region. I appreciated the introduction, but I no longer needed it. The validation that mattered came from my employees who depended on me for good jobs, from clients who trusted us with their facilities, from health officials who called us for emergencies, and from my own knowledge that I had built something sustainable and meaningful. The COVID pandemic hit several months later, and suddenly the entire world understood what I had known all along. Cleaning and sanitation professionals are essential workers. Hospitals, businesses, schools, everyone needed proper decontamination. Pristine Solutions worked around the clock, our training and expertise suddenly in desperate demand. My father called during the first wave. I'm watching the news. They're calling you frontline workers, essential personnel. Maria, I'm so sorry it took me this long to see what you've always been, someone doing work that literally saves lives. Thanks, Dad. But I already knew that. That's why I kept doing it, even when you couldn't see the value. The greatest lesson wasn't about proving my father wrong, it was about understanding that all work has dignity when done with excellence and integrity. Society creates false hierarchies between white-collar and blue-collar, between professional and service, between management and manual labor. But those hierarchies reflect our prejudices, not actual value. My mother cleaned houses for $50 a day and supported our family. That work had dignity. I built a $2.5 million company that employs 60 people. That work has dignity. Both deserve respect, though they operate at different scales. The shame my father felt about her work, and initially about mine, was his limitation, not her failure or mine. Service work stigma runs deep, especially in immigrant communities where parents sacrificed so children could escape manual labor. Understanding my father's fear helped me contextualize his shame, even if I couldn't accept it. His parents worked brutal hours so he could have better. In his mind, better meant escaping their world entirely. He couldn't see that I had taken their work ethic and built something sustainable from it. The difference between working in service and owning a service business is significant in terms of control, compensation, and security, but both deserve respect. Every person scrubbing floors or cleaning hospital rooms is doing essential work. We saw this clearly during the pandemic when society suddenly realized that sanitation workers were keeping everyone safe. I learned that professionalism exists in every field, measured by standards, training, and expertise, not by whether you wear a suit or scrubs or coveralls. My team's ability to respond to a biohazard emergency with proper protocols demonstrated professionalism equal to any corporate boardroom. Building a business that provides good jobs, not just profit, became my measure of success. 60 employees with health insurance, retirement plans, and dignified work conditions. That's impact that matters more than any revenue number. The pandemic proved what essential workers had always known: society can't function without us. When everyone else worked from home, cleaners, healthcare workers, grocery staff, and delivery drivers kept the world running. The work was never just anything. It was always essential. My final realization was this: I was always successful. My father was always wrong to be ashamed. His opinion was based on prejudice about what work should look like, not on any actual assessment of value, difficulty, or importance. Waiting for him to recognize that gave him power over my self-worth that he never deserved. Have you ever worked in a field that others looked down on, only to prove its value and importance later? When did you realize that all honest work deserves respect, regardless of how society ranks it? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about building businesses that matter and finding dignity in work that society undervalues. Remember, there's no such thing as just a cleaner or just anything. Every job done with excellence requires skill, dedication, and expertise, and every business built with integrity deserves respect regardless of industry. Thank you for listening, and may you find pride in your work regardless of others' opinions, the strength to build something meaningful even when those closest to you can't see its value, and the wisdom to know that your worth isn't determined by someone else's prejudices about what success should look like.